I'm delighted to introduce, and I'd like the panel just to stay in place, and we'll continue our discussion after the Congresswoman completes her comments. But Congresswoman Ann Wagner comes from the 2nd District of Missouri. She's a founding co-chair of the Congressional Caucus on ASEAN, and I welcome you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I'm so sorry to crash. We're having some complications with the Senate again, so I'm a little concerned to have this symbol behind me. So we're at the moment, but I'm sure we'll get it all worked out. But I'm being one of the top senior whips in the House and in that organization. I've got some pretty pressing work to do here on behalf of our country. But thank you, Ambassador, very much for having me here today. Thank you for the indulgence of the panel. I have so much respect for international exchange programs and how they improve our public diplomacy with partners and allies across the globe. So I truly appreciate Global Ties and for keeping professionals connected and engaged. As a former United States ambassador, I saw the importance of that kind of people-to-people tie, frankly, at every age. I saw it with my own children who studied abroad with me for 4 years while I was stationed in Luxembourg. They studied, they played rugby, sports, debate, with 40 different nationalities all under one roof from people all over, all over the world, to be honest. And they learned quite a few things, things that books can't teach. They were diplomats and ambassadors themselves. They also picked up a fair amount of language, especially on the rugby pitch. They could, there were words they could say in so many languages that I won't even go into that happen on a rugby pitch. In my congressional office, I hired an alumnus of the Fulbright program. Her experiences in that exchange program shaped her worldview as my time as ambassador shaped mine. It inspired us to fight for democratic principles around the world and be a voice for the voiceless, something that I say all the time, especially when it comes to the fight of genocide, against genocide, and sex trafficking across our globe. Thank you. These experiences have contributed greatly to my leadership, my agenda, my work on those issues here in Congress. So I'm grateful that the U.S.-Asia relations community is tremendously bipartisan. Most recently, Senator Merkley, who I think was he here a little bit earlier today? Love him. And we teamed up and we traveled to Northeast Asia on a delegation with our spouses and colleagues. The purpose was to engage with our Korean and Japanese counterparts on peaceful solutions to the crisis on the Korean Peninsula. We had the opportunity to visit the DMZ and Dandong, right there on the Chinese-North Korean border, big trade hub, and to meet with President Moon, Foreign Minister Kang, and so many others. Sometimes all we need is the opportunity to put a face to a name, to speak to a person to person, to see with our own eyes how other societies and systems function. You've got to find the humanity. This is really, if we could all just sit down. I used to tell some of my diplomats that I worked with when I was an ambassador, they'd say, "Oh, we should meet, ambassador, with with that group or this person. They're they disagree with you on everything." And I said, "Well, then why am I here?" I assure you, and I think you all would agree, if you sit down with me and break bread, have a cup of coffee, a glass of wine, whatever it is, we can have a discussion. We may disagree on all sorts of different policy angles, but at the end of that discussion, you will not hate me, and I will not hate you. We will have found the humanity in who we are and what we believe at our core sense, which is, we want to be safe, secure. We want our families to be safe and secure. We want to be productive and engaged members of society and give back. There's so much commonality that I think sometimes we lose. So that's why I'm a believer in these kinds of cultural and professional exchanges, and they truly are the foundation, I believe, to a better world. Until, as I said, in Seoul, we sat down, and until you've had, kimchi in Seoul with your Korean counterparts, you really don't know each other. It's the same kind of principle that I've been doing for decades. So since I came to Congress in 2013, I have served as a member of the House Financial Services Committee, and I'm currently chairman of the Oversight and Investigation Committee. And this role has given me great insight into how U.S. policy can best promote economic growth and how U.S. financial markets fuel the world's trade and investment. Financial services is engaging, but last year I also joined the House Foreign Affairs Committee and have been able to play a more central role in advancing America's leadership on the world stage. From even before my time as a U.S. ambassador to Luxembourg during the Bush administration, my great love has always been foreign policy. So finally, having jurisdiction and the opportunity to move legislation on the Foreign Affairs Committee has really been fantastic for me in this last year. The first decision I had to make on the committee was which subcommittee to sit on. And while I wasn't an ambassador in Western Europe, the choice was very clear to me. I asked Chairman Royce to place me on the Asia-Pacific subcommittee. Chairman told me, kind of raised an eyebrow, and said, well, I would be the first Republican woman to serve on the Asia subcommittee in nearly 2 decades and one of the only women in history. And I said, sold. The Asia Subcommittee was obviously an easy choice because it was obvious that in the wake of the global economic recession, Asia was a key player in our recovery. Asia proved itself an engine of global growth and innovation, a region closely interconnected with sectors across the American economy, and yet I don't think Congress, and I've spoken about this broadly, does enough to focus on Asia nearly as much as we should. We are actively engaged on the North Korean crisis, and we have raised urgency of the South China Sea issues, and I continue to believe in free and fair trade with our regional partners and promote this, but we have not been adequately engaging with our Asian counterparts, prioritizing Southeast Asia. I also sit on the Middle East subcommittee. You can imagine that given current events, these portfolios do keep me pretty busy. We had 3 hearings, I think, alone yesterday in foreign affairs and one in financial services. But between committee assignments and votes, I realized there was an additional need to very directly engage our counterparts in Southeast Asia. And together, I believe it was just mentioned too, with my friend Congressman Castro, we founded the Congressional Caucus on ASEAN last year. We believe that Congress should play a more active role in building the U.S.-ASEAN partnership over the next 50 years of ASEAN's history, and that the U.S. should be a strong and reliable trade and defense partner. The caucus has given us a unique opportunity to really get to know our counterparts from Southeast Asia. We eat together, we drink together, we figure out ways that we can move the ball forward on all sorts of different initiatives. In September, in fact, we passed the House Resolution 311, acknowledging the 50th anniversary of ASEAN and the 40th anniversary of U.S.-ASEAN relations. The resolution recognized, among many other things, ASEAN's importance to the peace and stability in the region, and we intend for the resolution to raise awareness also within and outside Congress about Southeast Asia's role in the global order. Most of this audience, I think, already knows how important ASEAN is to our economy. ASEAN is our 4th largest goods export market. $100 billion of U.S. goods and services are exported to ASEAN, meaning this market, frankly, rivals the $113 billion market that we have in China. Together, ASEAN is an amazing force. The 3rd largest population in the world, almost 380 million people under the age of 35. I think that is what's key. 380 million people under the age of 35, and the world's third largest labor force. ASEAN does not suffer the demographic problems that are staring down Northeast Asia and the West. So it's no surprise to me that ASEAN is slated to become the fourth largest economy by 2050, surpassing the EU and Japan. I am adamant that we must expand market access and lift trade barriers to take advantage of ASEAN's growing economic role. In all of these efforts, not only with ASEAN, but with the Asia Subcommittee's work in general, I know that intercultural understanding is the cornerstone, I'd say, of smart foreign policy. And I'm thankful that so many of you have prioritized international exchange programs that help us create a more peaceful and prosperous world. I want to thank you all for being here. I look forward to working together with all of you as we expand and grow our U.S. And Asia ties throughout 2018 and beyond. So I thank you for letting me crash here. I'm going to dash back to the House side and see if we can't, I'll bring a little good mojo from the Senate over with me and we can get some things straightened out. I hope you have a tremendous rest of your conference. I hear the morning went very, very well. I'll let you get on with your discussion, but thank you all very, very much.
Thank you. You launched the ASEAN Matters with us.